Well, good morning and welcome to yet another beautiful day here in Cambridge. Today we're digging into the heat pump data because I'm still getting all the comments from you guys that this thing is going to bankrupt me. So how much did it cost to run? How much am I out of pocket? Was it the biggest mistake I've ever made? Let's get into it. So we had our heat pump installed by Octopus Energy back in November 2024. So it's been running now for about 5.5 months. Now each month I review my data so that those of you that are considering getting a heat pump will have some idea of how a heat pump will perform. And over the course of a year, I hope to be able to give you a full year's data so that if it is something you're considering, it can help you make an informed decision. Now my heat pump is a Daikin 6 kilowatt unit. That means it produces up to 6 kilowatts of heat, not uses 6 kilowatts of energy. We have that coupled with a 162 litre slimline hot water tank in our upstairs cupboard. There's just myself and my wife, and occasionally my mother-in-law comes to stay with us. So we don't use that much hot water. But obviously if you are maybe a family of 4 or 5 and multiple kids in the house, then you might want to think about a bigger tank. We completely removed our gas boiler. So as part of the installation and part of the agreement to get what's called the bus grant, which is a grant from the government for up to £7,500 towards the install, you have to have your gas boiler removed. So we removed our gas boiler as part of that, but we still have our gas supply because we still have a gas hob in the kitchen. Our plans are to remove that hopefully sometime this year. If the stock market ever recovers from Mr. Trump, then maybe we will be in the position where we can invest in a new kitchen and we can replace that old gas hob and terminate the gas supply completely. Now, we also have a 9.2 kilowatt solar panel system on our roof, and we have about 37 kilowatt hours of battery storage coupled with that. Now, I understand that's a large system. It's probably more than a lot of people will have, certainly from the battery storage side, but that's the system that I have, and obviously that will influence some of the figures that I'm going to give you. Now, my personal recommendation is battery and solar go together with a heat pump absolutely perfectly. But if you don't have either and you're considering investing, I would start with battery and solar. It will have the biggest impact on your bottom line, and then maybe go to a heat pump later. Now, having this battery and solar system in place allows me to generate 100% of the power that my heat pump uses for about 80% of the year. Now, during the rest of the year, in the height of the winter, December and January specifically, we import energy at night from the Octopus Intelligent Go tariff, and we store that in the batteries. And that means that we can feed the heat pump whatever it needs from a power perspective all throughout the day. And that means that the energy that we're using to drive the heat pump in the winter is costing us 7 pence a kilowatt versus maybe 24 pence a kilowatt if we were just buying it on the open market. Now, since last month, we have made some changes to the way that our heat pump operates because, as anyone in the UK knows, we've had a glorious March and an even better April. In fact, just a couple of days ago, the temperature not far from here was at 29 degrees in April. That's just bonkers. But we've had a fantastic month from a weather perspective, and that means that we don't need our heating on. So we've turned our heating down in the heat pump down to 16 degrees. Now, we could just turn the heat pump off, but we've left it at 16 degrees because we do still get some chilly nights. So in the morning, we want the house to warm back up to about 16 degrees. But it's done that maybe 1 or 2 mornings out of the entire month. Now, we also need our heat pump for our hot water. So our heat pump will continue to stay on even all through the summer, and it will generate hot water for the house as and when it's needed. Before we go any further, let me just put one myth to bed again, because this comes up every single month when I look at the stats for my heat pump. Everyone says, well, it's going to cost £20,000 to install a heat pump. Heat pumps don't cost £20,000. If you're getting quotes from people that are charging you £20,000, they're ripping you off. I was in a situation where my gas boiler, which was 27 years old, was installed when the house was built, was on its last legs. And every year, although we had it maintained and looked after by British Gas, every year the British Gas engineer would tell me, they don't make these, they haven't made these for years. If something goes wrong with this, you are going to be in trouble. So when it started to fail, we took the opportunity to look at whether or not a heat pump would be better than putting in a new combi boiler. The quote for a new boiler, similar to the one we had, where we have a water storage tank, was about £3,700 fully installed. So that's a new boiler, new tank, and some new radiators, because some of the radiators that were in the house just weren't up to scratch. The cost of installing our heat pump was not £20,000, it was £3,900. So £200 more than the gas option. And to be honest, £200 of that were, should we say, non-essential upgrades to my showers. I wanted to upgrade to a better model of shower in both our bathroom and our ensuite. So I took the opportunity to put new pumps into those showers. So that was why the total cost came to £3,900. So as I say again, if somebody is quoting you £20,000 to install a heat pump, they're ripping you off. Go talk to companies like Octopus, and any of the others, any of the Heat Geeks, any of the reputable companies, and get a quote from them. And understand that right now, this may change in the future, you can get £7,500 off the cost of the installation from the government. So my cost to me was £3,900 after the £7,500 grant. They took care of all of that. I never saw the money, it just disappeared. But the bit I had to pay for, the cost to me, was £3,900 for the entire system fully installed. So let's start by looking at the coefficient of performance. So what you can see here on the screen is a lot of data, but let me walk you through it from the top of the screen down. So our seasonal coefficient of performance, so this is the data when we take data from January all the way through to the end of April, and we average it out, means for 2025 our SCOP, or our seasonal coefficient of performance, is 3.41. That means for every unit of energy that we put into the heat pump, we get 3.41 units of energy out of the heat pump. Now, that's not magic. We're not breaking the laws of physics. This is just the way that heat pumps work. And there are plenty of other videos. If you want to know how exactly it does this, there are plenty of videos out there. I certainly recommend the Heat Geek channel. Then across the top, you can see what we have, the combined coefficients of performance. So this is the combined both heating and hot water together. So as you can see, January we were at 3.32, 3.43 in February, 3.49 in March, and 3.69 as we go into April. Then below that, you can see for each individual month, both heating and hot water. Now the heating is always going to be more efficient because you're not trying to get the water to such a high temperature. So in my case, the sort of design temperature of my heat pump is around about 35 degrees, whereas for hot water, I have it installed in the tank at 47 degrees. So as you can see, our coefficient of performance is rising as we go into the summer, which is a good thing. But I'm sure there are already people starting to type into the comments that if you don't have a coefficient of performance of 4, gas is always going to be cheaper. That's just not true. So let me show you this. This is from my Shelly Energy Monitor. This is the device that sits in the consumer panel that runs the heat pump, and it monitors every electron of energy that goes in and out of that heat pump. So what we can see here is the blue line is April and the yellow line above it is the previous month, so that's March. So we can see here, because of the good weather and the fact we've turned our heat pump down, we used 61% less electricity in April to run the heat pump than we did in March. That's why our coefficient of performance has gone up. We averaged about 3.34 kilowatt hours per day to run our heat pump. Now, as I say, most of the time that wasn't doing heating, most of the time that was just generating hot water. And that meant for the whole month, for both a little bit of heating and all the hot water, we used 100.11 kilowatt hours for both heating and hot water. Now we're going to round that up to 100 just to keep the numbers simple for everybody. When I did the last video, I kept everything to, I think it was 4 decimal places, and people went crazy and said, just round them up, give us whole numbers. This chart we're going to walk through line by line, because what we have are different costs. So what would the heat pump cost if you didn't have solar and batteries like I do, if you were on different tariffs, or if you were using gas? So we're going to look at all of them, and we're going to see which one is cheaper. And we're going to see if it is true that if you don't have a coefficient of performance of 4, then gas is cheaper. Now, I went onto the Octopus website and I pulled down the latest prices for these tariffs, and also the latest gas price, because gas has just gone up. So let's start in the first column. If you were on a standard fixed tariff, so no smart tariffs, maybe you've got an old style meter, maybe you don't want one of those new fangled meters, you'd be paying 24 pence a kilowatt hour, 24 by 7. Doesn't matter what time of the day you use the energy, you'd be paying 24 pence per kilowatt hour. If you were on Intelligent Octopus Go, like I am, so maybe you've got an EV, you would be able to buy energy overnight at 7 pence per kilowatt hour. And if you then have battery storage in the house, as you could do just as I do, you could import that electricity, store it in your batteries, and use that to run your heat pump. If you don't have that, maybe you have a small battery and you're on the cozy tariff. Now, Octopus are a little bit funny about their tariffs. Like, for instance, you can't get Intelligent Octopus Go unless you've got an EV. So they have a heat pump tariff called Cozy. And if you've got batteries in your house, I really don't understand the difference between a battery that's got wheels on it and a battery that doesn't. But Octopus have a clear demarcation between them. So it's maybe that if you've got a heat pump, you've got solar and batteries, but not an EV, you can't get either Intelligent Octopus Go or Octopus Go. Now, I've heard rumours you can go to Eon Next Drive, are not really fussy about whether your battery's got wheels or not. But let's assume you don't. Let's assume you have a small amount of batteries, maybe 10 kilowatts of batteries. You're on the cozy tariff. You're going to be paying an average of about 20 pence per kilowatt hour. Now, let's look at it if you've got a gas boiler. If you have a 90% efficient combi boiler, you're going to be paying about 7 pence. I think it's about 6.911 to really round the numbers up. You're going to be paying about 7 pence per kilowatt hour for your gas. And you're going to be paying the same amount, but if you've got a less efficient boiler, which was the one that I had before I got the heat pump. So that one would be about 90% efficient, one will be about 75% efficient. So the next line down, you'll notice the numbers are all the same. So this is how much heat in kilowatt hours the heat pump used. So this is how much heat we consumed in both heating and hot water across the range. So this is what we would need to generate with those tariffs if we weren't using the heat pump the way that I do. So if you were using the standard tariff, you were consuming 100 kilowatt hours of electricity. That was exactly what mine used, but you were paying for it on the fixed rate tariff. You'd be paying £24 a month for your heating and hot water. If you were on Intelligent Octopus Go and you were saving that 100 kilowatts into batteries and using that to feed the heat pump, that would reduce to £7. So for heating and hot water, you'd only pay £7. If you were on the cozy tariff, and again paying about 20 pence a kilowatt hour, it would be about £20 for the month. Now let's look at gas. With a 90% efficient gas boiler, you would need 410 kilowatt hours of gas to produce the same quantity of heat. Now I'll let that sink in a minute, but don't forget, heat pumps with a coefficient of performance of about 3.6, 3.7 are going to produce 3.6 or 3.7 units of heat for every unit of energy you put in. A gas boiler, for every energy unit you put in, every kilowatt you put in, you're going to get 0.9 of a kilowatt out on a combi boiler and 0.75 of a kilowatt out on an old inefficient boiler. So you need 410 kilowatt hours of gas, which would cost you £28.33. And if you had an old boiler like I had, that's going to cost you £34 for the same quantity of heat. So the myth that gas is cheaper doesn't really stack up. In this scenario, obviously Intelligent Octopus Go with batteries at £7 is the cheapest option. You then go to the cozy tariff and obviously if you have batteries, so you can get that slightly lower price, you'd be looking at about £20. And even if you were on a standard tariff, no smart meter, just a standard 12-month fixed tariff, you'd be paying £24. All of these options are cheaper than the gas boiler options, which come in at £28.33 or £34 for heating and hot water. What if you have solar and batteries? You can't generate your own supply of gas for your gas boiler. You are at the mercy of the global gas markets. If gas prices go up, you're paying it. There are no smart tariffs that I'm aware of for gas. You're just paying the per unit charge to deliver gas to your house. So unless you've come up with a way of making gas in your own back garden, you are never ever going to get out from under the feet of the energy companies. But by investing in solar and batteries, you absolutely can generate 100% of what you need for most of the year to cover the costs of running your heat pump. So solar is going to win every single time. And we've just had an incredible April. The weather has been very unseasonable, but just look at these numbers. If you've ever looked at what solar systems generate and you look at your usage, you'll realize they can generate way more than you need. But just take a look at these numbers. So 2025 is there in the green. As you can see, March and April have been way better than last year. Now, to be honest, last year was a bit of a rubbish year. But we've had outstanding months for generation. In fact, we generated over a megawatt hour of electricity in April of 2025. So our heat pump used 100 kilowatt hours to run. We generated over 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. So we generated 10 times as much electricity as our heat pump used. Now, if we take a look at the graphs from in my case, Octopus Electricity from my energy supplier, is I imported electricity at night. So for those that don't know, we also have 2 electric cars. We charge those obviously off peak using Octopus Intelligent Go. So we spent £61.80 buying electricity in from the grid. And we bought quite a lot of electricity in from the grid to run 2 cars and to charge the batteries up to make sure that they always had sufficient power. But we were able to export £145.04. So when we wipe out the £61.80, we ended up with a profit this month of £83.24. Now let that sink in for a moment. We ran our house, we run the heat pump to give us all of our heating and hot water. We charged 2 electric cars, and the energy company gave us £83.24 back into our bank account at the end of the month. This is why coupling solar and batteries with a heat pump is so important. Now, for all the accountants out there, let me hopefully stop all the comments that are probably about to come flooding in. We're not looking at the capital return on our investment for our solar system. The reason is like I say, our system has been built over the last 15 years as and when we make money from it. Now, some of it was from the original FIT system, so it paid itself off a lot quicker. But the system has not only paid for itself and returned the initial investment, it's actually done that over twice. So we're 2x what we paid for the system. So we've got our money back, and we've got our money back again, and we're still getting our money back from this system. So I'm not worried about the capital cost. What if I'd have put the money in the bank or I'd invested it into an ISA, something like that. This has been the best investment I have ever made, hands down. Everything else, all of the financial advice that I've taken from other people has all been rubbish by comparison. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of you out there saying, well, what if your batteries fail? What if there are, you need to replace the inverter? What if you need a panel breaks and you need to get somebody up on the roof? All of this is cost. And absolutely it is. But like I say, the system has paid for itself twice over. There's plenty of money in the pot to cover these eventualities. And to be honest, those same what ifs apply if you have a gas boiler. What if your boiler breaks down? Have you tried getting a heating engineer to come out at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning because the gas boiler's gone offline? All of these things, they're all risks, but the difference is one system returns a profit. That means if something goes wrong, you've got money to do something about it, and the other one just consumes your money. So another thing to consider here is that just the cost of maintenance on the system. Now, I like to mitigate as much risk as possible. And that means that when I had my gas boiler, I had it under a maintenance contract with British Gas. Probably the reason that the old boiler lasted as long as it did was I had a yearly maintenance inspection. They tweaked it, they cleaned it, they did all sorts of things to it. But they were also available should my heating go offline. I could call them out anytime, and within 24 hours I'd have an engineer come out. I have a similar maintenance contract for the heat pump. Again, so if something goes wrong with it, somebody will come out. It's also covered for its yearly inspection, parts, all of those kind of things. The cost of the gas contract was £22 a month. The cost of the heat pump maintenance contract is £9 a month. So it's actually saving me money. Again, just by moving across and continuing to do what I've always done, I'm saving money every single month just on the maintenance contracts alone. So why do I produce these videos? Because a lot of people will go, well, this is just you showing off. You've got a solar system and people can't afford a system like yours. And it's absolutely not. I'm not here to show off, to say, hey, look at me, look what I did. And I'm not here also to try and convince the Luddites that, that this is the future and they should get on board with it. I'd be wasting my breath. So what I'm trying to do is give you a real world example of how a heat pump works in a real home. Now, I don't live in a mansion. I live in a 3-bedroom house near Cambridge. It's a normal house. There's nothing special about it. Now, all of the things like the solar and the batteries, we've added on to that house. Now, there is cost involved in that, and I understand not everybody can afford those costs. But this is what we've chosen to do with our house, and there are plenty of other people out there who are looking at doing something similar. So the reason I make these videos is to try and give you that real world example. So you can look at my data and say, well, if those are the kind of savings that we can think about, we can start to do the calculations. Now, I'm also not suggesting that heat pumps work for every single type of home. And if people just would stop posting in the comments and go, well, if it's not good enough for the Houses of Parliament, why is it good enough for us? Firstly, nobody's forcing you to have a heat pump. And secondly, the Houses of Parliament is a 250-year-old building that was designed to be heated by fireplaces. And it was so good at being heated by fireplaces. If you look at pictures of all of the MPs that are obviously were paintings at the time, not photographs, they're all wearing outdoor clothing while they're in the Houses of Parliament. That tells you how good the Houses of Parliament are at keeping the heat in. So, unsurprisingly, modern heat pumps don't work in a building like that. But they do work in houses. If you're of the anti-heat pump brigade, let me save you the comments. There's no point you jumping in the comments and typing in all capital letters, this is all green crap and it's all Ed Miliband's fault. Lots of things are Ed Miliband's fault. This is not one of them. But let me save you from commenting. Just click away, go to the next video. I'm not going to convince you and you're never going to convince me. Renewable energy technology works, but if you're closed-minded and you know all the answers, then just go to the next video. But if you're interested, you have questions, I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to share what I know. I don't have all the answers personally, but if you do want to know more about this, how we did it, how did we build a system that we scaled over time, then hit me up in the comments. I'd love to talk. That's it for today's video. I hope this has been useful. If you are thinking about getting a heat pump, you will see on the screen there is a QR code. I should have mentioned this earlier. This is how good I am at promoting these kind of things. That QR code will take you to something called a link tree. In there you will find referral codes for Octopus Energy. If you are thinking about getting solar or a heat pump and you use my referral code, not only will you get £100 off of your heat pump or £50 if you're switching to Octopus, but I will take that money that I would get normally and I will make sure it goes to good causes. If you want to know more about what we're doing with that money for good causes, then please do join my monthly live stream where we go through all of this in data, how much money we've made, and very soon we're going to start talking about how we're going to be sharing some of this money out to people that really need it. With that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. I really do appreciate it. And if I'm lucky, I'll see you back here real soon for another one. Take care. Bye-bye.